let's have a look. Our first question today comes from Cheron, C-H-E-R-A-N-T. I think that's how you pronounce it. A short question. When I talk or discuss to myself aloud, alone, I get these chills on my body that even goosebumps come up on my physical body. Is this phenomenon normal, or is it something going on that I'm not aware of?
Well, there are several possibilities. One possibility is that you're talking to yourself and you suddenly realise it and you think that's not good. In Great Britain we have a saying which is talking to yourself is the first sign of madness. So that's the 3D answer. The other possibility is that there is a connection that you have and either off planet or to another dimension, and when we're in this reality, if we are trying to access that communication, we would tend to speak out loud because we're 3D creatures, flesh and blood, in a biological body, and we forget that we are far more telepathic than we know, and so we will verbalise, we will use our voice box, and it's only with training that you can actually stop that and just use your mind. So, there are lots of possibilities, and we sort of had joked about the first one, but if there was something very, very telepathic going on, then it's not impossible that you are relaying information or you are holding a conversation with something, but instead of using your mind, you are using your voice box. You see, when the greys communicate, if you imagine dropping a pebble into a pond and the ripples going out, that's what a grey does. They're not very good at focusing. So if there were 6 people in a room, the greys find it very difficult just to send their thoughts to that one individual. It tends to be everyone gets hit with the same thought. Other beings are able to just send a message through like a pencil beam so that it just goes to the individual concerned. That's not to say all greys have that problem, but many of them do. Now, when you're a human in a human body, then you spend 99% of your time, I guess, depending on who we are, on this planet using the voice box. So when we go into that world, or we wish to access that world, then it's unfortunately it's difficult to switch back and we'll just talk. So, without more information, I couldn't give you a better answer, I'm afraid.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, from Christian92 Romania. Hello, Simon. Hello, JP. Simon, I know you've said you do not believe in the biblical God and that you believe in the source that created everything that there is. Could you perhaps explain then how praying works? Does source hear our prayers? Why do most prayers go unanswered? And does praying even work? Thank you.
That's a good question. That's a really, really good question.
Yeah.
Because it allows me to explain the trickery that's going on and has gone on for thousands of years. Right. In the Western world, to my knowledge, which people are taught to bow their head, put their hands together and pray. And if you're in a church, you have to get down on your knees. And the church is very, very thoughtful. They provide you usually with cushions so that when you kneel down, your knees don't get hurt or cold on the church floor. It's very kind of them to provide cushions. What God wants the creatures that it made to get on its knees and beg for it. The only God that could do that is a God that created people to serve him. And Source did not create people to serve it. It created people to contain souls and to go and experience and learn. And then it would take pleasure, if that is the right word, from watching its creations develop. And there's no right and wrong, you just go out and you do it. So if you are taught by a society to get on your knees, put your hands together and say, please forgive me because I did a very bad thing today, that's not developing our soul, that's not developing our consciousness, that is subserviating ourselves to something we don't even see. So what happens is basically lots of people, in my view, I've got to say that, lots of people go to church, get down on their knees, they pray, and that energy is focused through and taken off somewhere. You know, that's why places of mass murder generally were circular. Think about ancient Rome, the Circus Maximus, the gladiatorial combats, and the Hippodrome, which wasn't circular, but that was oval, but it was still a circle that joined. And the entities would just hang about 100,000 people and soak up the energy. So I don't believe in a God as a person. I do not believe God would ever treat people on this planet the way it does. But I believe in a source that creates and says, right, you've got life. It's the greatest gift anyone can have. Go out and use it. And how you use it is up to you. So, nope, don't accept the God of the Bible, but do believe in a consciousness that permeates everyone and everything.
Dear Simon and JP, your radio show is simply the best thing out there. It says it.
Hurrah!
There's nothing quite like it, nothing else quite like it. Carry on the great work. Alright, so here's the question. Let's see how good the question is. I've read that after each life we have a life review session where a small group of elders discuss with us what we've learned in the life just lived. I've also read that we can see future snippets of our next life before we're born into it, and that there are study sessions we can attend before choosing to reincarnate. Do you have any comments on this information? Does this only apply if we return to source, or not? Love and light.
Right.
Destiny calls.
Well, first of all, Destiny calls. It's very kind of you to say those wonderful things about the radio show. I'm sure they're not accurate. I'm sure we're not the best thing, but we're going to try and be the best thing. Thank you.
We're as good as it gets.
Okay, JP. The question has got a lot of truth there. The problem is it's a little bit mixed up, and that's because I genuinely think that people who are pushing out the information just generally aren't quite clear. I don't think there's anything deliberate here. Right. Let's plug it backwards. If you are from a higher dimension and you're human, not exclusively but usually, and you look at the planet and you remember you can look down the dimensions. It's very hard to look up, but you can look down and you can feel the energy. And you look down on Earth and you say, for goodness sake, what's going on down on that planet? Don't those people know what's been done to them? And you just feel so cross that you think, I've got to do something about this. So you go to your government, whatever that may be, and you say, listen, I want to go down on that planet because they need some help. And the government turns around and says, look, we've got a no intervention policy. We're not going to officially sanction you, but if you wish to volunteer, then you can do so. Now, only a fool, actually, or someone incredibly brave, would go from the higher dimensions straight down to Earth. What you normally do is you stop off somewhere, and this is where the support comes from. You stop off somewhere to get some advice, because if you're coming from a place that doesn't use money, that probably eradicated internal wars a huge time ago, doesn't have greed, and doesn't actually have the problems we have, to incarnate on this planet without some form of training is a disaster. And I have met people who've done that, and they have a very difficult life here. So it's usually the jolly old Palladians who host training sessions, training courses, because they are the most aggressive in defence humans that you can meet generally, and so it's not uncommon for Lyrans particularly to stop off at the Pleiades and get some well-needed assistance. And that's where a group of elders can sit round and say, well, what do you feel you need to do? Okay, this is the situation. That's not actually what the question assistance you might get, because it might not be the assistance you want. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, a hard question here. Hello, Simon. There is so much evidence out there that Pizzagate is real. What are your thoughts on it?
Right.
Next question, please.
When the truth about the evil that has pervaded the super rich, the multi-corporations, is made known, there will be a lot of people who consider themselves quite hardened and tough who will just cry, because to believe that so many people in politics, in agencies that are supposed to protect us, that in corporations that should just be making money and not get involved in anything else, should be part of a worldwide child trafficking program is I will not say it's too evil to contemplate, because you've got to face things. You've got to face them up. You have to contemplate it. You have to look at something to understand it. You know, if I, for instance, and I don't, but if I had a cruise liner, shall we say, and I had 6 or 7 big cruise ships, I have the means to travel from one country to the next. And the only time I sort of check borders is when my boats land. Well, what an interesting company for moving children and prostitution that might be. Or I might have an airline, or I might have something else. So what we do is we'll look, when we want to out these people, we look at a mechanism that allows these people to do the evil they do. For instance, let's say an evil person, what will an evil person do? They won't go outside with a big placard saying, I'm a paedophile. What they'll do is they might start a fund, a charity, a foundation to save homeless children. And so, on the face of it, what they're doing is they're getting kids off the street. But in reality, what they're doing is feeding this worldwide network of paedophilia. The satanic organizations are hugely involved in that. They have infiltrated a wide range of organizations and companies throughout the Western world. And in terms of the Pizzagate, of course, there's the very interesting evidence. There's literally some of the terminology that these evil men use when having one of their secret conversations. And there's a particular shop that's associated with this case, and the name of the shop is a name of one of the code words that these people use. So when the questioner is saying there's a lot of evidence out there, oh boy, there is a lot of evidence out there. But I don't want people to get focused on that, because that's actually what's just been exposed. There is so much yet that needs to be exposed. That is, I'm not saying it's the tip of the iceberg, but there's a lot more there. And the key for me is that how endemic it is, and how widespread and how deep-rooted it is. And that's the shock, that these evil, horrible people have been able to hoodwink the vast majority of the public while carrying on the evil things that they do. But that's the trick, isn't the term, isn't it? Hidden in plain sight. That is exactly what's been going on. But as human consciousness changes, and I was just chatting to someone the other day, and we were looking at the human resonance. When I talk to people, I always say, look, I've lost track of the resonance of it now. Go check it, because you look at some of the old stuff on YouTube. It talks about the human resonance as 7 point something or other. Well, now I think it's been tracked at about 36. Now that's accurate, and it may well be accurate. That's why the evil people are losing control, because the human resonance is the driving force of the spiritual connection with humanity. And if humans are operating at 36 rather than 7, then it means that the evil people, in order to keep the trick have got to operate higher, but they can't. These evil people are incapable of operating at high levels, because when you're eaten up with all that evil, they can't do it. So that's why stuff's coming out, because they are failing to put a blanket over it, because human consciousness is now seeing what literally 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, we wouldn't have seen. And that's the evidence. That's what we need to be proud of, that the humans are waking up. Yes, it's too slow. We need it faster, but it's happening. And so things that the evil people dreamt would never reach the ears of the ordinary public are coming through. So I don't want to end on a down note with that. I want to end on a positive note that these people's days are numbered. And maybe, although I'm not saying anyone that I read out is a bad person, but maybe lots of people who've made their pile are trying to hide. Maybe it isn't that they're worried that, oh my God, the economy is going to collapse. Maybe it's, ooh, I'm going to be found out. Where can I go where I can't be got? Now, as I say, I'm sure the names I read out, people haven't got anything to do with that, but there will be people who are superbly rich and have got a lot of things to worry about. So it's a really good question, and I hope that answer helps.
Thanks very much. Where has it gone? I'm asking you. I've covered up the window.
I'll just have a look. Oh, it's just there for you,
Yeah.
on your left-hand side.
I got this mouse that wanders across 3 screens and it doesn't know sometimes where it is. Okay, so here's a question from Richard. What are the different Illuminati groups? You've mentioned the Satanic Illuminati, and I've also heard of the Gnostic Illuminati. Can you explain the groups, what Illuminati means, and what the goals of each group? Now, supplemental question, Trump. Is the Illuminati, Freemason, or a part of any kind of secret society? Thank you very much. So,
Right.
Illuminati, what does it mean? Who are they?
To that last. We've just sort of attacked God now, but we'll just talk about Jesus. Jesus in the Bible. For those who don't read the Bible, I'll just remind you that according to the Bible, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in a stable. And 3 kings, 3 wise men came to visit him. And the story goes that there was a star, and the star shone over the stable, and they were led to it. As far as I'm concerned, it was a spacecraft, and it was just shining a light for these 3 guys to follow. They'd all had visions planted in their head. They had to pack up their camels, and that's quite serious. They had to pack their camel up with food and provisions, and each one of the 3 had the same dream as they saw it, and they all met up and they all went off. The term for that is magi. And when we go to the situation predominantly after Roswell, the American elite and the magical fraternity decided they needed to form a group, and we call it the Majestic 12, the Majestic numbers. That's much more than that now. And what we have is a group of people who were seen as illuminated beyond ordinary people. And they were illuminated with knowledge, but they were also illuminated because they were expected to take knowledge. There's always been, ever since 2 men got together, hierarchy. Someone's always thought they were better than someone else. I form a club. My club's more upmarket than your club. And so it's not surprising that in human structures, organizations that have set themselves up to be more elitist than one next to them. So when you mix magic, real magic, not pulling rabbits out of hats, when you mix magic with huge amounts of money-making potential, with politics, with the defense of your country, the military, you are creating a group of people who wield more power than a president. And we've seen that time and time again. So with these group of people, you tend to be invited into a branch of the illuminated organisation. Now, if you come from a family background where magic, even if you're not magical yourself in your own mind, if you come from that, then you will be invited into an arm that will do that. If you've come from a military background, you'll go there. If, for instance, the soul in your body is a particular soul that's done something in past life, then they would try to fit that into an aspect of their organisation that would mean that would bring them power. For instance, Mensa, the world organisation that measures how intelligent you are, people just see it as a bit of a thing, I've got brain power of, 120 or 130 or whatever, 140. Mensa's role, as far as I'm concerned, is to identify super intelligent people and pass their details on. If you are wishing to recruit the most intelligent people on the planet in terms of academic or potential, then you need an independent organisation to identify and bring them in. So, most of the people that I've met who we would call Illuminati have the most incredible high IQ and are all very proud of it and all know what their IQ is. They've all done Mensa testing. Now that is suggestive in itself. So the Gnostics are, you're quite right, are an arm of the Illuminati, but they are seen as a branch. They're seen separate. They're seen by the corporate side as the wishy-washy, magical, tell me tomorrow type group, whereas the Gnostics look at the corporates as the greedy, hungry crocodiles in the river. So they are very distrustful of each other, but they all work within that. So you have a magical group, and the magical group will divide until you go down to the end where it's terribly satanic. You have a military group, a political group. So, for instance, if you're a politician and you're invited to join the Illuminati, they will put you in a group with other politicians. That's how it's done. All the military guys are with the military guys, the politicians, and so on and so forth. It's incredibly well organised, so it should be for the amount of money they've got. And their whole object is to expand and to take control of just about any organisation that could be of help to them. And people don't realise it. Even a local bus company, there will be people in there, because almost every walk of life has someone from those organisations there, because they never quite know when they would need that sort of organisation. Now, what was the final part, JP? There was a supplementary, wasn't there?
Mr. Trump.
Right. No, he's not. Had he been, then they wouldn't have cared a damn whether Hillary Clinton had won or he'd won. But because he's not part of their group, their phonies in the news media were told to go out and get him, because we don't want somebody that we can't control. If you look at Great Britain, we've talked about America, let's talk about Great Britain. It's only fair, isn't it? Great Britain, we had a run some 20 odd years ago of conservative prime ministers. We had Margaret Thatcher, we had John Major, and then they were beaten by a man called Tony Blair. And Tony Blair was the member of the Labour Party, and he was left of centre. So, and everybody wanted him. The media, the banks, everybody wanted Tony Blair. And you think, well, why would corporate organisations who only exist to make profit, why would they want a socialist prime minister? Doesn't make sense, because socialist prime ministers generally tax the big corporates far heavier than a right-wing party. So it didn't matter, you see, to them whether Tony Blair won the general election in Great Britain or a Conservative, because they get their man in either way. Now the problem for them with the Labour Party at the moment is the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, is not a member of the Illuminati. And that is why the media, particularly the BBC, are being told to attack him at every moment. They're absolutely furious that a major political party which could win power has a leader that they don't control. So you always know when somebody is in with the gang because they get wonderful press coverage. They get free news printing. You know, if my news printing, if everything they wrote about me was glowing and wonderful, then, you know, people would quite rightly say, well, he's obviously part of the organisation. But I went through a baptism of fire in the early days with the news people. And in a way, it proved that I was actually saying things that the establishment were terrified of and didn't like. So no, he's not. He does have people around him who are. But I guess that if you are sitting in, and he calls it a swamp, but if you're sitting in a pit full of snakes and you don't speak snake language, you are going to need people to speak snake language on your behalf. Maybe it won't always be like that, but I do understand that at the moment he needs people around him who are credible in this ultra-powerful network that he doesn't actually have access to. And because he's a billionaire, he could survive without having to be invited to these organisations. Oh, I bet you they've invited him several times. And I guess he will know people, but he's not part of their game. If he was, he wouldn't be a friend of President Putin. Remember, President Putin physically threw the Rothschild Bank out of Russia. So, you know, that's the truth of the matter. It's not to say that, you know, in 5 years' time or whatever, but at the moment, no, the guy is very independent. It's a good question.
Yes, indeed. Whenever I think of Trump, I get this really strange feeling of like, wow, relief, and like somebody's come along here who's a human and is going to deal with stuff. But the sense is that he's like, is he some kind of Templar knight or one of those more esoteric groups? Well, because you don't get anywhere in the business world if you're not a Mason, right?
Well, right. The thing is that he is still a member of a political party. He is a Republican, which means that he got through into that because of his money-making capabilities. He saw things that really upset him. I mean, it's not widely known that one of his children was badly affected by an inoculation, and because he had plenty of money, he could get doctors to have a look and see what caused this difficulty for one of his children, and he came to the conclusion that the contents of the inoculation were not very good for humanity. And this isn't widely known, and you won't find this anywhere on the internet, I don't suppose. But the major reason that Donald Trump ran for president was because he wanted to avenge what had occurred to one of his children and take out the big pharmaceutical companies. That is why, within 1 week, 1 week and 2 days, I think, of taking office, a particular agency that runs a lot of the testing work for a big pharmaceutical in the United States was raided by federal authorities and their computer equipment seized. Now, if the information on the computers shows that somebody knowingly or willingly was putting harmful contents into vaccinations, that will become public, I guess, and that will be very interesting. So, no, this is the problem. The truth doesn't come out there. Trump is driven by control system can't get their hands on. They can't understand it. I've never said to people vote for Trump. I've never said he's a good man, etc., etc. What I've said was he's the right man at the right moment, exactly as President Putin. Do we honestly think it's chance that we have these key people in the most powerful countries of the world, when there are evil people beneath them attempting to create a third world war and literally wipe the whole planet out, kill all of us off in a nuclear conflagration? Yet we have two people now in key positions who do not want that. That, as far as I'm concerned, is because Source has made that happen. Doesn't mean that Trump isn't going to pass domestic laws in America, which some people think are bad, because he's a politician. You know, he is a member of the Republican Party, he's the president. He's going to pass laws which some people like and some people don't like. But I look at it as the global situation, what drives the man. And so when you begin to understand a little bit about his background and his life, then you understand what his game is. He has surrounded himself with over 200 generals and admirals and high-ranking Air Force people because he doesn't trust politicians, he doesn't trust the White House, he doesn't trust Capitol Hill. We have in America a military government. It's not official, but that's what we've got, a military government, because the politicians are going to take the United States of America and flush it down the toilet. And he wasn't going to have that. So it's going to be a very interesting few months. Good question.
Do you know anything about Trump's past lives? Has he got a kind of record to do with that?
I'm going to pass on that one, not because I don't know. I've got some knowledge on it. I think I would be happy to answer that in about 3 months' time.
Good. Okay. Somebody will remember it and ask the question in the chat room.
Okay.
Dear Simon, this is Tess. Thank you for your constant efforts to make this world a better place. Thank you for your sacrifice to wake us up. You guys are inspired. Keep on doing it. My question deals with the Gnostic scriptures like the Quran, Al-Mahdi Library, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. Are these writings more are these stories the concepts of the artificial? Here's like the scriptures state the Archon Yaldabaoth, the ruler of this world, and is this creature that an archaeological record
Thank you very much for your very kind words. And thank you for listening to the show. Yes, you were absolutely. I smiled when JP read that bit out. Yes, that is great to all humanity children. That's what I was taught. That the Gnostics teachings, the Gnostic scripts, the Dead Sea Scrolls are, you'd have that in your house or a translation, as you would The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. It does actually talk about the man Jesus living by the sea in a very simple community. What we have is a situation where people have wished to use any method to control humanity. And you can create the club, which they call the church. You need a female and a male, like Jesus and Mary, and then you can spin a yarn, which is just absolute nonsense. It's all part of bringing people into the church, and you count your success by how many people are in your church. I mean, that's how they do it, isn't it? It's no different from a radio station or a television station. How many viewers have you got? How many listeners have you got? And that's, never mind the quality of it. It's how many do you pull in. So, what the TV stations do is they make them more and more outrageous and more stupid and more crazy, so that more and more people watch it. The content is absolute filth. It's just brain dead. People falling over to make fools of themselves on television. It brings people in. And so that's what the church is. It's actually who's got the most congregation. Oh, you must be very successful because you've got all these people. Who's raised enough money for a new church roof? A new church roof. Do you know, when I was a boy, He used to pass a church, and it had one of those things outside, like a thermometer. So, and the top said church, new church roof, and the top was like, I don't know, 50,000. That was a lot back in the 1970s. 50,000, and at the bottom was 0. And it never moved. It was at about 5,000. Now I was at school from, I don't know, 1971 to 1975, and the damn thing never moved. No matter how hot summer was, this thermometer never moved up. Well, truthfully, actually, when how cold it was, the thermometer didn't drop. But it was always 5,000. I thought, well, where's all the money going? And didn't anybody who walked into that church think I've been coming to this church for 20 years, and that thermometer's, not moved, and we've not got a new roof. So, come on, where does that money go? We think and guess where it goes. So that's how things work. But yes, it is, as far as I'm concerned, that's why the Orthodox in Israel deliberately tried to hide the Dead Sea Scrolls, and in fact there are a number of them that are not given over for translation that are still hidden, because it talks about the archons, which this very knowledgeable community of Jews, the Gnostics, were aware of, but this archonic attack, which was to take over the whole of the human race. There was hybridization, part human, part reptilian, and of course the church and the elite didn't want that out, so what they released for translation was only a small amount, but it is, as far as I'm concerned, it's truthful, and yes, I was taught that when I was a young boy. It's a really good question, thank you.
Interesting. So,
Tea time.
Time for put the kettle on. All over the world, the power goes on. So let's have. I'm trying to find a good tune. Let's have The Cure. This is an old song, Fascination Street.
Okay.
Let's take it down. And welcome back. That song has about a 30-second blank bit at the end. Anyway, so welcome back to Connecting Consciousness with your host Simon Parks. Here you are again. Any thoughts over the break?
Thoughts?
Any thoughts come to your mind? No thinking.
No, I'm in my question and answer mode, so I don't think like that. I just wait for the questions to come in.
Okay. So the next question is a first-time listener, and they didn't quite know how to do it. So it's coming this way. Hydrogen. No, it's not hydrogen. Hydrons visited me via sleep paralysis. Since then, I feel like I can't sit still, and there's like a turbulent storm in my body and my mind.
Well, it's nice that we've got a new person. That's really important. That's what it's about. It's about keeping hold of the people we've got and just reaching out. So, welcome. Hope you're listening. The difficulty I have is the name you've given to this particular entity. Whether that is a name that they gave you, whether that's what they look like to you and you've given the name, or whether you've found a picture on the internet and you think that looks a little bit like what they were. So I can't answer that because I haven't got a description of what you've seen, and a name doesn't help me. Now, if we say the Greys came to visit me, you all know immediately what that is, although I would then say, okay, let's see what sort of Grey came to visit you. Going to about the what's it again, JP? Hydrons?
Hydrons?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you see, when we think about that, we think about Hydra, we think of Jason and the Argo, we're thinking of Hydro as in snakes.
I think he's also referring, sorry to interrupt, Frank.
What?
Tolek has spoken of Draco and Hydra reptilians.
Oh, Hydra, as in water. Right.
Oh, no, maybe not necessarily Hydro, but from the Hydra system.
No, but when you pronounce it, it's like Hydra, so it would be like hydrogen, so that's how you pronounce it. Right, okay, now I'm understanding a bit better now. Yeah. nevertheless, I always like people to describe what they've seen rather than give me a name, because often people have a name for something which actually isn't quite right. What's more concerning is the person has still got this physical experience, and it sounds to me potentially as if they've connected to you, and it may be that they have a channel to you, or they have partially come through and are in your energy field. Because when we have an experience, what we normally would have is 2 to 3 days where you feel a bit disassociated, and then your body comes back into balance. But if it's like going on for a long time, that's because whatever it is still with you. So the good news is that I'm passing now numbers of people who have contacted me on the email address through to be booked in. Hurrah, hurrah. So you should now start to get some connection, booking appointments in, and I would say to this person, you might wish to consider sending an email off for an appointment, because you really shouldn't be feeling this type of physical manifestation so long after the event. So I won't say anything more in case the person does actually want to connect with me, and I'd rather speak to them on a one-to-one basis. But yeah, sorry for the misunderstanding in terms of the entity.
He's saying, Simon is right. How does he know? So there you go.
Pardon?
The questioner is saying, Simon is right. How does he know? So there you go.
I don't understand that.
He's saying, I've seen him in the chat room.
Oh, I see. I got you.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And he's saying that you're spot on. So.
Well, that's nice, and it's nice that he was able to say that. Thank you. Look, I've got a wide experience of a very great number of strange things built up over many lifetimes, and by connections that I have ongoing, which means that I can generally, I'm not infallible, but I can generally think, oh yeah, I've seen that, or oh yeah, that happened, oh yeah, I know about that. God, that was a long time ago, but that's what happened then. So I've usually got a framework that I can look back on and say, yeah, I know all about that. Sometimes, of course, I don't know about it, but then I've always said, if I don't know, I've always, and on the radio shows, do get the odd question, and I'll say to people, I'm sorry, I don't know. So it's nice when someone actually says, yeah, you're spot on, because that's the sort of encouragement I need, really, because doing a radio show is very lonely. You guys ask questions, or you give me your stories, which are fascinating. I reply, but I don't get there's no feedback from it. I just give you an answer, and I think, well, I've done my best. I really hope that's helpful. So, through the chat room, that's really cool. So thanks very much.
I think it would be nice if people sent you testimonies. If you've had, I'm going to do it on your behalf, Simon. If you've had a good session with Simon, or indeed a good session with me, or any of the other hosts on the Spirit Radio, do send an update. How did it go? What happened afterwards? Because we're usually in the place of people in the transition, and often people fall straight on their feet afterwards and get on so well that they forget about, I forgot that they told us this. So there's a nice thing, a nice closure to the feedback. Meanwhile, Grace. Several years ago I would experience dark figures near me, and my health and personal life went crazy. Although I have managed to get both back on track, I am somehow experiencing people standing beside me that are not actually there. I'm also seeing lighter coloured flashes of beings or things, some small, some are not. Could you comment on why this is happening?
No, I can't, because I don't know what's going on in your life. But what you've described to me is fairly accurate. The flashes of light are when something from another dimension enters this one, or is skirt, skim a flat pond, and it touches the top of the water, and then it shoots up again, and it drops down, skims the water. And sometimes when an entity is coming into the reality, it will just skim the surface. It will skim it, have a little look, come out again, and see it, and it skim down, and you see it, and it come up. So that's very common. But we don't actually physically move this down the same place. The shadow beings here, that's the old interesting one. That's the shadow beings that they're not there, but they are there. They're not hallucinating, and you're not mad, then they are there. But you're not seeing them with your eyes generally. You're seeing them with your psychic third eye, feeling them, and you can see the shape of human outline. But you must always remember that the